everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of your favorite YouTube series, and mine as well, Not Another Demo. I am joined this week, as always, by Aaron, Lloyd, and Anthony, the Really Bad Security Squad. And we are super excited this week to be talking with Yubico. So we're going to talk a lot about YubiKeys and FIDO 2 security. Now, if you'll remember back to one of our really bad security episodes, the coming MFA apocalypse, we talked a lot about multi-factor authentication and how potentially that was not a great security platform or standard to have. And so I think we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, and maybe how Yubico is doing things a little differently or a little better, or taking that to the next level. So with me from Yubico, I have Andy Winiarski and Craig Widmaier. And guys, I will let you introduce yourselves a little bit, but the first question that I do like to ask is, at a time where people's calendars are book solid and there's more vendors vying for more of our time and more people trying to sell us stuff all the time, talk a little bit about why someone would want to spend an hour with you guys on the phone, talking about what you guys are doing.
Sure. Yeah, Craig, you want me to go
yeah,
first?
and you kick it off, and then I'll just introduce myself when you're done. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So Andy Winiarski, Senior Solutions Engineer with Yubico, covering the Midwest with Craig, and then I also cover Canada as well, from here in Michigan. And, you know, my take on why you would want to spend an hour with Yubico is that we are the company, we're really the leaders driving some of the strong authentication standards that actually defeat phishing, right? From an MFA perspective. So that's what we're very laser focused on, that mission. So Craig, you want to go ahead?
Yep. So I'm Craig Widmaier. I'm the sales director for Michigan, Ohio, and Kentucky. And from a business perspective, the reason you'd want to spend time with us is we do a couple of things. We will help reduce your IT support costs. We will help provide a solution that will improve the user experience. And we will also future-proof your MFA, because this market is so dynamic and changing. We offer multiple protocols. Like the example today, we're going to talk about FIDO 2, one of the leading ones. And we provide the ability to get you from a bridge from the legacy systems to the new modern authentication that we're talking about. So that's the reason you'd want to talk to us. Andy?
Yeah. Well, so I'll jump in because I think I did it and then you did it. So we both said MFA, which is multi-factor authentication, right? So I'm going to stick with our no acronym rule set we have here on Not Another Demo. We do say, though, once you use it once, you can go back to using the acronym. So we've got that out of the way. We will say MFA from here on out, and that will be just fine. So I guess to that point, though, let's start there, because honestly, we hear, multi-factor. It's, it's what everyone should be doing and needs to have. And, our bank accounts have it, and everything has got multi-factor authentication on it. And it's supposed to be the great savior. Maybe talk a little bit about, what's good and what's bad about it, and then maybe where you guys are taking things a little bit differently.
Well, how about we simplify it even more? What's the difference, for people that aren't familiar with it? What's the difference between SMS, multi-factor, like a one-time passcode app, and then what you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, SMS, where you've got an account with a username and password, and then it's also sending you a text message to your phone, right? It's, and I should preface this by saying any MFA is better than no MFA, right?
Fact.
We absolutely say that and believe it, right? So, but that's kind of SMS, and that has its drawbacks. You've got the FBI last year saying stop using SMS. You've even got Microsoft a month or so ago saying stop using SMS, right? It's too easy to phish, SIM swap, etc.
Is there a reason why businesses use that one? Is it because it's easiest to implement?
It's
cheap.
Yeah, it is. It's
cheap and easy.
And not everybody, unfortunately, wants to put an app on their phone, right? For their authenticator app or whatever. So
Right. Yep, exactly. So the one-time passcodes coming off your mobile phone is what people traditionally think of in terms of OTP, right? One-time pass. Sorry, acronym.
No, you did it. It's all right.
You cut yourself.
What
You caught
one-time
yourself.
passcodes? Yeah. So
You'll be forever doing that now. I swear.
yeah, it's going to be a thing. So many acronyms. Well, and before we get to that, but FIDO itself is an acronym, right? Fast ID Online. So
Didn't know that one.
I didn't know that one either.
Yeah, everybody really just goes by FIDO. But I know from working in the Canadian space, there's a cell service provider over there called FIDO. And so when customers look at us cross-eyed when we start talking about FIDO, they're like, "Wait, you work over the FIDO network?"
So let's actually talk about that while we're on the subject. Can you explain how FIDO authentication or the protocol works? If you have an example or some slides you can show us real quick.
Or for the first time ever, we're gonna ask.
We've asked for a slide.
Ask for a slide. It never happens.
You broke my heart. And we're back. I figured out technology. I'm so proud of myself. Screen sharing. It's tricky. Anyways, Andy, I do have your PowerPoint up here. So if you want to walk us through these slides and the FIDO security, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I fully finished Aaron's question from earlier, where we were talking about one-time passcodes versus this thing we're going to look at now, which is FIDO, right? So one-time passcodes are still based on a shared secret between your device and whatever service that you're authenticating to. And it's also susceptible to man in the middle, right? Someone can step in there and phish or man in the middle that OTP code and turn around and go use it. It's harder, but we're seeing it happen, right? In real life. So FIDO, on the other hand, is PKI based, certificate based. And so that's what we're going to walk through here. So let's say I take a Yubikey. And by the way, I don't think we necessarily showed, but these are what the Yubikeys actually look like. So you can kind of visualize. So
I've never seen one in real life. So
and we actually have some pretty cool news I will share at the end of the video about those things. So yeah.
Yep. So that's them, and a variety of form factors there. But let's say I take that and I go to a website like Gmail or Office.com and say I want to register a Yubikey under my account, right? So there's a registration request, and then that website in FIDO terms is called the relying party, or RP, another acronym there. But they're going to send back basically a challenge. And Matt, if you want to do a couple clicks here to kind of build this halfway out. Yeah, so that challenge is sent to whatever the client is. In most cases, it's a web browser, or it could be potentially a mobile app, etc. And the Yubikey generates a public-private key pair, right? Where the private key stays on the Yubikey always, never leaves the Yubikey, and it hands the public key back to that relying party. If you want to go a couple more, maybe 2 clicks.
So that's interesting. Let me follow up on that. So each Yubikey has its own private certificate. So is it really that confined? Is that why it's that secure? Like you don't have a copy of that certificate anywhere else. It's just only in that key.
Correct. And you can see there kind of down to the bottom underneath the key image there. It's a private key per site that you're registering it with. So, I can register this key with tons of different FIDO enabled websites out there. All the key pairs remain separate from each other. And we've worked very hard. Once the keys are generated, the private keys, that can never be exported off this under any circumstances. We can't copy them off. You can't duplicate a key, etc. It's all stored on the secure element, which you can think of like a trusted platform module on workstations, and it stays there forever. So, and then I think to the point earlier, you can see the that there's this concept of the site that you're registering with being bound very tightly into that public-private key pair. So if I do get a malicious link in my email and I'm redirected to something that looks like Google or looks like Office.com, but it's really not, it simply will not work, right? You will not be able to authenticate to that website.
So
that's
is
how
that because they, even though it says public key for that website, is that because let's use a bank, right? Bank Z, it's a public key, but only they know what it is. So it's still that public pair key combination. So if I was a bad guy, I created Facebook.com. I don't have that public key to make that interaction work. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, you don't have the public key on the service platform side, and more importantly, if you go ahead and click one more and go to the next, this is an authentication, and I think let's build this out all the way. Once I've registered it, I'm going back to authenticate, and I get a challenge, and there's this concept of a binding to that website, and then I sign that challenge with my private key, right? And so I'm not going to sign a challenge in your example there to Facebook.com because I don't have a key registered for that site. Right?
Okay.
So, or if you in an example here in a couple of slides, right? You're not going to be able to turn around, even if I do sign a response to that, it's for the wrong URL. So you're not going to be able to take that sign response and go use it with the actual Facebook.
Right.
Okay.
So Andy, now that we have a little bit better understanding, at least through these couple of slides, like let's talk about a real world example. How could you use something like a Yubikey to secure like your administrative tenant access for 365?
Wait, before that, I got one more basic question. Sorry.
Oh yes, let's get the basics.
You're getting into use cases where I'm just still trying to understand the concept here. So on the website that has their public API, does that mean I would have to like register my website with Yubico and then you give me a public key and that works out? Because one of the things that I like
an open protocol. So any website can use it. It's not specific to Yubikey.
So where does that public key, where does my website, really bad security, how do I go generate my public key to use with this, I guess is a better way to say it.
Well, let's see. So the user and the key generates the public key that gets sent to your website, and then you would store it on your side in a WebAuthn server. So WebAuthn is the server side of the FIDO 2 protocol spec, basically. So it would just be stored along with the user account on your site, if that's the question.
All right, I'm gonna try not to butcher. So the key itself can give me a public key, and then I'm responsible for storing it on my website to use it when we do the transaction.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Look at you, Aaron.
Being an analyst, my day job.
Yeah, not bad.
Sorry, Lloyd, your question.
That's perfectly okay. We had to make sure we covered the basics. So I was just curious how that we have a little bit better understanding how you could use this to secure a cloud platform. And I use 365 as the example.
Sure, absolutely. So you would just go into your 365 tenant and enable security key authentication for those users. So it's in, for instance, with Azure AD and O365, it's in public preview right now. We've got quite a few customers out there already using it. We expect, we expect GA for Microsoft on that, next year. Hopefully first half.
Yeah. Well, that makes it easy enough. So that's fantastic. Right.
And GCP, you can use it. AWS with the web console, you can use it. FIDO auth over a CLI is a little tricky. Still, I think we're still some work to be done there. But yeah.
Well,
Google,
what for that seems like that would be an extreme, though. I mean, isn't it the whole concept, if I'm understanding you right, is it for it to be a balance of user friendly and super secure, right? So command line, I'm not Anthony and lives in command line, but for us fronting over web developers, I try and avoid CLI at all costs.
Right. Yeah, it's a pretty small niche use case there. Exactly. So, and you can, one of the things that we didn't mention that is somewhat unique to YubiKeys is that we have all the different MFA protocols on the keys. There's, I think, 7 or 8 different protocols that you can use. FIDO is the newest and really the best of them, but the YubiKeys can act as a smart card, a traditional smart card. They can do a number of different one-time passcode protocols, open PGP for PGP fans out there. So there's quite a bit to it. It's kind of the Swiss Army knife of.
See, that's good to know. So I don't have to do a lot of infrastructure development changes right away. So I can bring it in, and I guess, let me rephrase
ideally, if
it.
you wanted to be the most secure, you would want to implement FIDO2 WebAuthn U2F on your website.
Right, but
Also
not
allows
all of us
for-
are giant insurance companies.
But
with
it's not
oodles
it's
cash.
not a super complicated platform or protocol to implement, honestly. There's
Well,
no
I was
reason
more-
every website should have this.
What I'm saying is, like, I've invested a lot of money in my health site, right? And I'm not opposed to using this technology, but I have to put it on the roadmap. I have to get development time and everything else. So if I'm understanding right, because you have all those, the older ones and different ones built into the key, I could bring this in and start. And could I replace this? Could I replace Google Authenticator almost right now with minimal effort, and then build into my roadmap development time to get it to where Anthony's talking about?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So Google Authenticator is just doing OTP, so OATH, time-based OTP, and the YubiKey can do that as well. So that also is a standard. So yeah, that's a great example of something that you could just get started with, and that's what we see a lot of customers doing, right? Where they have some kind of existing MFA today, and YubiKey is great because we can kind of meet them there, and then they can move towards FIDO or whatever it is.
So I think, Andy, on the slides here forward, let's talk a little bit more about the actual protocol itself. Maybe that would be good for some people in terms of like what's different about it or what makes it better, I think is what these last couple of slides are here. See, I'm letting you get all the way through all your slides today as well. So.
Right, and this is just a little bit different take on some of the other slides, a little bit kind of cleaner look here, where we're going through the authentication handshake, right? So the server that I've registered with, a bank, let's say, is sending that challenge. There's a nonce in there, if you will, so that here it's called random number n, so that challenge can't be replayed, right? To try and prevent replay attacks. And then let's see here, Matt. I think there's a build out or two, right? So we're basically signing that challenge we talked about with the private key that we established when we registered the YubiKey, and then sending that back to the bank. So and you can see there we're including the domain name in that. And in the example where I have a malicious email or malicious link, it's redirecting me to a different site, right? Or I type in, I mistype the URL, for instance, and I go to some, kind of malicious site in that manner. The response that I've, for instance, signed is not the right. It's b1nk.com. It's not the right response. So I can't turn around and man in the middle of that and replay it back to the actual bank and say, look, I'm so and so.
So Anthony, this scenario was what Jarrell was doing in the MFA Apocalypse video, right? So is showing how this part of it would happen.
Yeah.
Is that right?
There are man in the middle tools and attacks out there. The one that we're most familiar with is called Evil Jinx, which uses a web proxy, man in the middle, to capture OTP codes and passwords along with session cookies. So you can replay those either to the real site or just import those to your browser and act as that user.
So I wasn't in that one. So I got a couple of questions on that because it ties into a question that I have for the gentleman. Where's probability come into play? So how does the man in the middle happen if I'm not clicking on any fake spear phishing links?
I mean, that's how it has to happen. You have to
It
go.
has to- okay.
You have to go to that man in the middle site.
Okay. The one that they've set up to to mimic everything.
Not just mimic. You are going through another proxy. You're going through a proxy to get to the real site. It's the real website.
That part of it was what was really amazing when Jarrell showed how it, like, because I think we used LinkedIn or something as the example, and we were actually going to his LinkedIn page. It was literally staring at his LinkedIn page.
So that web proxy is acting just as a pass through, but it's grabbing, it's splitting the information, sending one through, and then siphoning the other one. Okay.
Yeah, both are valid, valid examples that are really actually happening today, right? Whether you're getting redirected to a malicious site or someone's just sitting in the middle, they're both perfectly valid. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the business side of, because I feel like this was technology that's been around for quite a while, was super in vogue back when I had a real job. Kind of went out of vogue as people started using cell phones and other forms of multi-factor. And now I'm seeing from a security standpoint that is starting to really come back around again. So, but I think one of the things that, if I remember correctly, was, people worried about people losing, having an extra something, right? Which is why everybody likes doing it on their phone, because, we go into absolute panic mode if we're going to lose our phone. So we don't, because we're checking our pockets 100 times a day or every time we leave the house. So can we talk a little bit about like the business side of, hey, I would like to be more secure. I would like to use these Yubikeys. I'm worried about the maintenance, the care, and all of that
specifically, Yubikey as a service, which I know you guys offer. Would really like to hear more about that offering, how you, handhold our employees or end users, how you help with registrations and all that.
Right, absolutely. So, yeah, a couple things there. Yubikey as a service, or like a Yubikey subscription, is something that we've rolled out for enterprise customers this year. A lot of customers like the OpEx model, right? And then with that, we're providing, every year we're providing a certain set of backup keys or upgrade keys, however they want to use it, to basically, manage the life cycle of the keys. So that's been really well received. And with that, we've also rolled out a delivery service whereby you, as the security administrator, can upload or issue individual shipments to individual people, and it'll go right to their doorstep, right? Which has been, we were working on that, and then obviously COVID kind of shifted that into high gear.
Right? I was going to say, your marketing team was like, bonus.
yeah. So we're not responsible for COVID, but it did accelerate that aspect of things. So and definitely the concept of the lost key and so on and so forth certainly can happen. The best practice is give people two, right? Give them a couple, register them both at the same time when you set them up, and stick one in a secure location in case you do lose that key. Or if it's someone with a dedicated machine, give them a nano, basically, that just lives in the laptop, right? That's what I've got in my Mac right now. Here I've got a nano, and just barely sticks out a couple millimeters on the side.
Mine live on my key ring. So
yep.
But you nerd.
So when somebody loses their key, how do you guys, like, what's the revocation process? Somebody says, oh my gosh, I lost my key. It was plugged into my laptop. How do you ensure somebody can't reuse that key?
Right. Great question. Get that one, I think, almost every single customer call. Right. Yeah. So the user in there, with most services, Gmail, O365, things like that, the user themselves can go in there and revoke it, or you as the administrator, if they call the help desk and say, I lost one of my Yubikeys, you can go in and revoke it as well, right? But the more important thing, the better answer to the question really is that the key is still just another factor, right? So I can't lose this on the street and someone can go plug it in and use it and impersonate me, right? Because it's only one factor in the multi-factor authentication process. So that's what stops, that from being a serious issue, basically.
Well, let's talk too about
one thing. Let me jump in and just add a visual for everybody on the call, as we try to keep it simple and technical at the same time. The other analogy that I like to use, because like Andy says, we get that all the time, is think of it as your ATM card. Your ATM card has your name of your bank's got your name. It has all that information on it. But if you lose that and somebody picks it up, they don't know your PIN. So they can go to every ATM, plug it in, and after a few times, it's going to eat it anyways, right? But the reality is it's not useful, because it's what you have and what you know, and nobody but you has both of those items. And that's probably the simplest.
If it's a regular ATM card, debit card, different story.
Well, so then,
Good point.
So
Go
let's talk about real quick, because to that point, passwordless authentication is a really big thing with FIDO 2 and specifically Yubikey. When I log into either of my Office 365 accounts, whether it's my admin account or my normal account, I don't type in a password. I put my Yubikey in, I type in my PIN, I touch the gold contact, and it lets me in. So talk a little bit more about that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So passwordless is great, right? And Microsoft has really been out there kind of leading the charge on that with FIDO 2. Passwordless is the experience you just described, really is the full implementation, the full vision, where that public-private key pair that I established when I registered it now has the concept of my identity kind of wrapped up into that, right? So I can go to a website like O365, plug my key in, and the critical point there that you mentioned is the PIN, right? So Microsoft enforces a PIN. I think we'll see most platforms enforcing a PIN on this as the something to protect that credential. So, but
yeah, because that was my question. Is like, wait a minute, how do you have to enter a password in the first time? So in this process, because when we say passwordless, there's still that initial setup that needs to be done, like when Windows Hello and everything else, biometrics, all that stuff is fine, but you still have that first sign up interaction. Do you still need passwords with that? Or is Microsoft and other companies getting to the point where I just bought a new Windows 10 laptop. I'm logging in the first time. It's me. Microsoft is assuming that you are you when you first set it up. I mean, because they're not doing, they're not going out to RSA and doing the 3 questions. So knowing that, can you set up the PIN and the Yubikey at the same time and truly never have that first password?
We're not there yet.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's the future.
No, that was a genuine question.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I was wanting to be education.
Passwordless is the future of, at least for security. Imagine all of our problems going away.
Because then you have
a good chunk of our passwords, or a good chunk of our problems.
Yeah, I mean, that's
okay. So what's
passwords are still the weak link in the whole entire chain here, right? So
I was going to have the engineering answer for us, because I never get all 3 at the same time. I can answer like 2 or 3. So what are the 3 things you need for authentication, Anthony?
3 things you need for authentication?
Well, he said Andy gave you one of them. Something you have.
Something you have, something you know, or something you are.
Perfect.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, yeah, because something
Sounds
you
good.
are. Something
Normally
you are
I
is
have
like
trig here.
biometrics.
Okay.
So speaking of biometrics, do you have any inside information or maybe a sneak preview on the Yubikey bio?
Yes, we will be releasing a biometric Yubikey will look very similar to the existing keychain format, but instead of the gold circle, there'll be a fingerprint reader there, basically. So USB-A and USB-C, first half of next year. So been working very hard on it. And, that'll replace, like in a FIDO2 authentication example, the fingerprint will replace the PIN. So
okay, that's what my question was. I was
Yeah.
like, so not in a mean way, but like, so what does that get? What does that get me as the end user? Okay, I see what you're saying. So I don't have to worry about the PIN, the biometrics. My thumbprint, in essence, replaces the need for a PIN.
It unlocks the Yubikey, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay.
yes, yeah.
And the other unique thing that we're doing about that is we are storing that fingerprint on that key. It's not stored anywhere else. So when you're storing, like, you're using your Business for Hello on your laptop and you're using your Face ID or your fingerprint ID, that's stored on your laptop, which still can be
Okay.
hacked and be
So
taken.
like Apple does when they have that their security chip. A lot of people don't understand that. I mean, frankly, and I have to tell them all the time. I'm like, they're like, do you have any issue? Why do you're in security? Don't you have issues with Touch ID? And I'm like, unless they're fibbing about something, no, because it's a true, like literally as a developer, it's a true or false statement. You put your thumb on your Touch ID and the only information it reports back to that application is a true or false.
Yeah.
So
Just a match or not
that's
match,
good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go back again to I'm an organization. I've been doing some multi-factor. I've got a system in place where people are using their phones or doing multi-factor. I'm listening to this or paying attention to what Yubico is doing, and I would like to start making that transition. Can you talk about what does that transition look like? Is it like we've got to pick an outage window and migrate everything over? Can we start picking and choosing some stuff? And what does it look like for a company to actually start working with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So in most cases, it's simply, it's a case of just turning on support for the Yubikeys in whatever platform that they happen to be using today from an IM perspective. Right. So if you look at kind of the big players, the Okta Duo pings, Azure MFA, et cetera, it's just a slider that says support Yubikeys, right? And they're all at slightly different
maturity levels.
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
I'll take that one on. So
hey, just like us.
I'll protect you from your fears on that one.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we do have other customers who, for instance, have no MFA today, right? And they're still just username and password, right? And then typically we're looking at either doing maybe a Windows smart card implementation where the key can act as both the smart card itself and the reader, right? So it makes it much more feasible to roll these out as a smart card and maybe start there, and then potentially look at some sort of identity management or MFA platform over the top of what they're doing. So
another thing that I talk about a lot when I do my security awareness training is the blending of our private life and our work life together as one. So let's say, again, I'm a company that's looking at implementing your technology. Is an end user of it, if I give this to Anthony and he's got a Yubikey, is he able to utilize this both for like securely accessing stuff at work and then also securely accessing stuff in his personal life? Because then I am kind of helping secure both of those spaces, which we certainly see a lot of cross-pollination in these days.
Yeah, absolutely. So the answer is yes. I mean, it's a big capital yes. And we encourage customers to advertise that or with their end users, right? Because if I'm using this for both work and for my personal life, I'm a lot less likely to lose it, right? So
yeah, that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking the fact that helps with protect your personal life, so you can keep your personal life more secure. So therefore, you're not as easy as a target.
Right. And specifically, if we're talking about like your personal email, Google has Advanced Protection Program platform, APP. But they solved account takeovers overnight by implementing that on all their employees. Since they started doing that, which they use their own FIDO2 keys, but Titan does the same, or Titan, Yubikey does the same thing. They have never had a phishing account takeover success at Google since.
Yeah,
So, and that they offer that to anybody who uses regular Gmail. You can sign up for it, enroll in it, and you will never have a G Suite account takeover again.
Yeah, yeah. And Google uses I'll just say this: Google uses a variety of different security key vendors. So, in addition to their own, they have their Titan keys as well, which are great. They're
okay. You can be politically correct.
Yeah, I'm about to say something.
It's okay.
Those are really built for Google, right? They do FIDO U2F to work with the Google platform, and that's that's fantastic.
So I do have a tougher question for you.
Mhm.
Because I'm wondering, like Anthony said, like, why aren't more people using this?
Yeah. Exactly.
What's the difference between a Yubikey and the old RSA key back in the day, which I used to have on our insurance wing when I was a developer?
Mhm.
And then there was, you guys, I'm going to paraphrase here. You guys might have to help me out. I think they were compromised and somebody took the algorithm or something to that effect and made that series of keys.
We're talking the little key chain thing they used to rotate
key
the numbers.
fobs. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What's the difference between the RSA keys and Yubikey?
Yeah. So our keys, and we can do that style of one-time passcode that RSA does, right? With, for instance, like Oath, or we have our own UBOTP protocol that we developed. One of the first things that Yubico did was develop a much stronger OTP protocol, because that's what people were doing back in those days. The difference is, with those protocols is there's a shared secret between whatever that device is and the platform that you're using, right? Mm-hmm. And also there's an algorithm that can be, potentially broken, if you will, by those things. So if you have the algorithm in one of the, and the seed or something like that, you're in, right? Okay. Versus something that's a public-private key pair with very strong cryptography and encryption behind it, that really that's been the only thing that's never been broken, right? Or, individual algorithms and ciphers get broken, but that's why we're always, moving to new things like elliptical curve and so on and so forth.
Right. Nobody, especially none of us. And so I struggled to even say the word, but for the sake of simplicity, FIDO2 at this point in time, on December 10th,
you're gonna say
2020,
it. You're gonna say it. And you're gonna say it. And
is an unhackable
these guys
protocol.
are gonna be very mad.
Right? Is an unhackable protocol. At this point, nobody has found a flaw in it yet. Correct?
Well, that's the key word yet.
Yeah, right.
But again, probability. I mean, in all serious probability.
Well, it's been out for years, right? And so people have been poking at it, and we have yet to actually break it.
Okay.
Well, and I think, and Aaron, we've talked a lot about being, like, what is that security level, especially moving forward into like 2021 and whatever, where people are at.
I had that discussion again yesterday.
Yeah.
What is the new percentage? I guess for people just listening and for Andy and Craig, because this is important for vendors to hear. As digital transformation has happened, as we've been forced to move faster, we've inherently had to take on more risk. So our ass back to the business as we try and become more, a business-based risk decision approach is, what is that percentage? Because you could throw X amount of money to get to 90% secure, but moving even faster is the new number 80% secure, right? But the trade-off is we're taking on more risk, but we're moving even faster, where it sounds like this technology, at least for the short term, it's a solid, it's a kind of almost like a no-brainer. I see why Anthony's like, yes, this is not a no. Normally with vendors, we're all like, how much you want to charge us? What can you do? No.
And I'm
This
over here
one,
like, shut up and take my money.
shut up and take my money.
Well, I think the thing is, if you're going to make an investment anymore, right, it has to get you to a certain point of security. So, I mean, we all know, even back to our very first CSA meeting where we had someone from the FBI come in, and they said that inevitably in all of the breaches that they investigate, they find a lack of multi-factor authentication, always, 100% of the time. And so, we certainly know that this is an incredibly important part of our security posture. So if I have to have it and I'm going to spend money on this because I have to have it, well, I should make sure that I'm getting as much security as possible out of that investment, right? It's a long-winded way of saying people should take a look at what you guys are doing, I guess. Right?
This is such a weird one. This is the weirdest, not another demo. In essence,
I'm gonna cut that part out.
Andy's been the analyst, and we've been the sales and marketing people.
Yeah.
And Craig's going, yeah, this is great. I don't know why we haven't done this sooner.
To his credit, he's been asking me for a while. So as we kind of wrap up here, I did have an announcement for anyone that watches this now. We do have our end of year swag giveaway on December 29th. Location yet to be determined. But anyways, Yubico has offered to give everyone that shows up to pick up your beer and all the other good stuff, your very own Yubikey. So we are adding that to the
You're forgetting an important disclaimer before you just made it so like 500 people show up.
Well, only people that
have attended an event in the past are available for this. Sorry, I'm not to be the meanie, but you've had to have been at an event and registered for something already. Otherwise, Craig's gonna go, why do I got an invoice for 500 Yubikeys?
Half of Grand Rapids now has Yubikeys.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Anyways, county is the most
not a free
our
county
membership. There will be that will be part of the swag package. So, all right. Well, Andy and Craig,
thank you guys. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, this was really interesting, and we did, like Aaron said, we did kind of take this a little bit of a different direction, but I think there is a technology. I mean, there is a technology behind what you guys are doing that maybe people don't know enough about, and so I'm thankful that you guys helped us kind of walk through what that technology is and explained that, as well as what you guys can do as a company. So
everyone that didn't know RSA, like I've stayed away from it because like, why would I invest something that could be like the RSA token stuff? And you set me straight. Wow. That's also a first too.
We thank you for that.
I want to thank you, but the other thing too is we don't have any batteries in our devices, so it's never going to.
It's
never going to go dead. When
you guys had to get one zinger in there, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm gonna see. Okay, I got to do something, right? But no, I really want to thank you guys for inviting us to do this. I actually think this format that you guys have together is just absolutely fabulous. I wish more people would do this because this is much more interactive. I think it's more educational for everybody, and I think that's where you're really driving. So thanks for doing a great job, and thanks for having us.
We appreciate that. Here's the amazing thing. Instead of people saying keep it interactive, you just make it interactive, and then you don't have to say keep it interactive, which is my least favorite not another demo slogan. So anyways, all right. Everyone watching this, please like, subscribe, share, do all of that kind of fun stuff. And we will see you again next week for episode 15. Thanks, everyone.